If there is anything I can do in my position and being who I am to help and inspire people, that's a great gift, really, to be able to do it.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners. Welcome to the 103rd episode of the Shipping Podcast. Finally, I got to meet Helle Hammer, the managing director of CEFOR, which is the Nordic Association of Marine Insurers. I think Helle worked at the Norwegian Shipowners Association when I was in the marine insurance industry, so we had never met before. But I had heard so much about her. Helle is a strong representative of the women in the maritime industry, so when I got the chance to sit down with her, I felt lucky. Meeting Helle also gives me a chance to reflect on my previous career and to have some perspectives on what my everyday work life looked like at that point. It gives me the opportunity to wave the flag for the interesting marine insurance industry, an industry even more hidden than the maritime industry in general, I think. With separate insurance companies from the other insurers, which we called non-marine. If you are young and thinking about a career within the maritime industry, have a closer look at what the marine insurance companies are working with. Or why not become a marine insurance broker? That is also an interesting job, I can tell you. I met with Helle in CEFOR's office in Oslo on August the 21st, 2018, and this is our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me here. I'm Helle Hammer. I'm the managing director of the Nordic Association of Marine Insurers, which is called CEFOR for short within our industry.
And what is your background?
My background is mainly as a politician. I worked 11 years in politics full-time, and I've also worked with the Norwegian Shipowners Association on lobby issues and taken that experience into the insurance industry now for 11 years.
Okay, so what is your education?
I'm educated within business administration economy. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, so I did sort of the broadest thing I could think of. I think the only thing I really wanted to do was work somewhere international that had a link to that, so I found it perfect industry in the end.
Okay, and how did you first come in contact with shipping?
I was just applying for a job, basically. I had been in politics for a number of years. I didn't really want to be a full-time politician, so I've just been there by default for a number of years, but I kept trying to get out of it. So I was applying for a job, and I needed someone to work on communication and lobby issues with Norwegian Shipowners Association, and I was fortunate to get it.
So you were on that famous banana leaf into the shipping industry then? Sort of?
Yeah, sort of.
I mean, I've met a lot of people and I asked them if either they come into the industry because they are family or because I hardly meet anyone who is actually aimed at going into the shipping industry as such. But once you're in there, you got the bug and you don't want to leave.
Well, that's very true. But it was an industry that fit with what I really wanted to do. So I didn't want to stay on in politics and really go in that direction. So I wanted to get into the private industry, and it couldn't have been anything. It had to be something that was related to a very international global market. And in Norway, this is one of the big ones. It's that or oil that's really sort of the two main options. So in that sense, it fit very well. But it could have been, telecommunication or something like that as well. So
CEFOR. What does CEFOR do?
CEFOR is a trade association for Nordic marine insurance companies. So we basically have four main tasks, if you like, or function areas. We do Like I said, a lot of the lobby work on behalf of the industry. It could be just to get a level playing field with competition in other countries, but also a lot of work towards the IMO on new safety regulations. Right now on autonomous shipping, where I will go in and have discussions on where do we want regulation to go. So that's one of sort of the four legs we have. The other one is statistics. So we do a lot of claims trends and statistics that you can use in your underwriting, but also we can use that when we have discussions with authorities and regulatory bodies to really try and convince them that there is a need to do something on so-and-so issue. We also do standard clauses, insurance conditions. So with a copyright holder and one of the signatory parties to the Nordic Marine Insurance Plan, which is used sort of basically by most of our members, but also internationally increasingly at the moment. And the fourth is education, which is very interesting and brings me sort of into discussions with all the young people in the industry. So I see all of them coming in, which is great. So I feel like I'm a principal when I meet them again, which I do all the time at different events. They're kind of like my children within the industry. So that's great.
How many members do you have in CEFOR in the Nordic countries?
It's 14, so it's not a big number because it's very capital intensive, this industry. So you need to be big to be a player here. So it's fairly easy to sort of manage them all, although they're different in size and in priorities and geographic areas. But
yeah, because I mean there is a Nordic Scandinavian market and there is an American market and an Asian or Japanese market, I would say.
Yeah, and certainly a London Lloyd's market out there. So, but we're one of the biggest in the world out of the Nordic countries. So it's interesting, and I think when I talk to people here in Scandinavia, they're quite surprised when I hear that we have market shares of 27% on the P&I insurance coming out of this market. We will insure on larger vessels. You will find an interest among our members on nearly 50% of all the big vessels worldwide, which is, for a tiny small country like Norway, added with sort of Sweden, Denmark and Finland, it's quite amazing. So I don't think you'll find anything similar.
No, I know. I used to be a part of it, so
yes,
I know.
Yes. But it's interesting because you get that interest when you go sort of outside of the Nordic area, then people really know about you and pay attention, so you get a lot of influence. So at the moment we have our actuary, she's heading up and sort of the guru on statistics internationally. I head up all the lobby work for our umbrella organization internationally. So it's one of those very fascinating situations to be in, so a good place to be.
So how many people are you here in this office?
We're only 4 people in the office that sort of on the administration, but it's run really through member forums, if you like. So we have 8 of those where you will have anywhere between 8 and 15, 16 people. And that's where a lot of the work's really, really done. And when we have a 1-year part-time program on education. I think I have about 35 people from the membership that I whip around to do the proper thing that come in as teachers to share with new people in the industry. So it's a lot more people involved in what we do.
You are a woman in this men's world.
Yeah.
I am as well. How do you find that?
Well, when as soon as you sort of establish yourself and they know that you're not a pushover and you bring something to the table, it really is only a positive thing. You become very, very visible. Sometimes they need women to balance out all the men, so you get invited to a lot of things. And it's one of those where I find that people tend to remember me very well, whereas I've seen, 20 men in grey suits and may struggle to see one from the other. The woman will stand out, and you often get speaking engagements because I would like to bring women in. So today it's not a problem at all, but I think to get to a certain level, it might be.
Yeah, but the marine insurance industry is more women there than it is, I think, in other parts of the industry.
Yes, I think you're right. There are a lot of lawyers, which is very often women, I think, coming out of it. We did a survey nearly 10 years ago, I think, and it seemed to be around 50-50 within the insurance industry, at least in the Nordic market. And I guess we're sort of quite advanced on on equality, as we do have very good support systems for two parents working really when you have children. So it gives you opportunities. But today, I think there are more people or more women coming into the industry than men. And like I said, I see everyone at the courses being run by us. And they've been sort of in majority for the last 3-4 years coming into these courses. So the challenge now is to get them up to a management level, because they are really, really experts. And just to get them up there, it's starting now. And I think as soon as you get more women at the management level, they will be better at recruiting, because I think young women and young men think and act a bit differently in terms of ambitions. So while women tend to hold a bit back and say, well, I haven't done it before, guys will just go out and say, of course I'll do that. So it's a bit of a different thinking, but I think women will be able to pick that up and say, you can do it, come on, and not convince them.
Do you really think it's only young men who think like that?
No. They say, no, not at all. Not at all. We do, and you need sort of both to come up there. But I think women in positions will easier see that difference and then think that they're not suited for it. But they just think a bit differently and act a bit differently.
But it's also important with female role models. I mean, you are a role model for the younger women. I know that because I've met some of them. So how do you find that?
Well, first of all, it's almost like an honor to be thought of like that. And if there is anything I can do in my position and being who I am to help and inspire people, that's a great gift, really, to be able to do it. And I just tell them back that, one important thing and one word you need to say is a yes. You take that opportunity. You don't go around and think about, I don't know, maybe I'm not good enough for it. You just go and say yes and jump.
Yeah, and you don't have to be asked to dance.
No, that's true. But I think a lot of the speaking engagements and things like that, which will give you a lot of visibility. Young Ship, fantastic organization, really good at bringing up and a lot of women there. And as I said, if you're on the board and become active in an organization like that, those are the people you will meet later along the line. They will come into positions and they are going to be your network and you really will use them. Like I said, I was involved with the Norwegian Shipowners Association as a younger woman and had that question from an owner once where we came and it was like, are you on your own? We were 2 or 3 younger women. So it's like he was expecting an older guy together with us. So that's the kind of opportunity, position you have. But, you meet people through that job. I went out of the industry and into politics for a number of years and then came back from the insurance side and into the industry. Same people I met that already had that network with. So that's really, really good to have and always think about it. Yes.
Yeah, and I can also see women our age or a little bit older than the youngest one that are now taking this very seriously to become the role models and to try and really stand up and look at me. I'm here and I'm claiming my space, and that is also making a difference for the younger women, I think.
Yeah. No. I think you're right to just see that it's not difficult. It's to me, it's not an issue. I don't even think about it. Every now and then I can find myself in a room with 60 people and I will be the only woman. It's more of a technical group that's going to happen with, but that doesn't really bother me anymore. I just think that we need to do something about it, of course, but on a daily basis, it's improving a lot, I think.
So going back to insurance, because that is something I did for 20 years.
Yeah.
I think that people do not really know how much you will have to know about shipping if you are working for an insurance company. Either you are an underwriter or you are claims, which is interesting. And that is where your education also comes into place. Maybe we need to educate people that being in insurance is so much more than just looking up a rate in a book or.
Yeah, and all this, the small text in contracts. It's a lot more. I think what I've done now, and this again through just discussing and talking to people, I've done some lessons at universities. I met up with people and I say, I'll do that, and I spend my time to do it, to talk to whether they are lawyers, they could be Going out as seafarers, they could be more on the technical side. And we go out and do lessons. Because the minute you say insurance, people almost fall asleep or they get desperate. If I say pirates, then they're suddenly interested. And I tell people that, well, who will see and know most claims? We will see them all the time. If you're in a shipping company, hopefully you want to see too many, but it could be years between the big ones, whereas the insurance people will see them all the time. So that's quite important. And I don't think you would have fuel to your car or bananas on your table or anything if you hadn't insurance, because it has to be there in order to move the ships. So it is very, very important to have in place, and it's not there as a nuisance. It's really there to help you, and they will be the first one to go out there. They will know the savage people. They will know the ports you're close by if something happens, and then be a really, really good support system. And the values are huge, so that makes it quite interesting to work with. And they're growing, so that's a challenge for us at the moment.
What are the biggest differences you have seen within the maritime industry in your career? What are the changes?
The changes are, I think, a couple of them. They're all sort of really technology related, I guess. You have the complexity of systems right now. That changes the picture, because all the rules on the DNV, GL, or whatever class rules you have, they're based on single failure. Traditional engines where one thing will happen and then someone will go and fix it, and all of a sudden you have systems that's connected in a different way. So you have a single failure, you could have a fault somewhere else happening. We know about cyber risk and those kind of things that will come as a natural consequence of that. We're getting more sensors, so you follow condition-based maintenance systems rather than the maker's recommendations. So that's a very huge, big trend that's coming quite quickly at the moment for us, and the growing size of the assets that we're insuring is a big challenge. It is luckily getting safer, so frequency is down, but the one big one is getting more expensive. So that's for the insurance industry getting to be a very, very big challenge to tackle, because everyone will look at their own, well, we haven't had a claim for a number of years, so we don't want to pay that much insurance premium. And then we can look at the bigger picture through the figures we have from all our members and really see that, well, listen, that means you might have been lucky, but the next one could really hit you, the big one. So that's for us a trend. And then, of course, you have discussions now on blockchain technologies and whether you want to do the business in a different manner in a couple of years. I don't think it's going to be without people or brokers involved here, because of the assets being that big, and it's not off-the-shelf products really coming out here. But I guess it's around there, and we touch upon autonomy and what's going to happen there going forward, which is one of my sort of great pleasures, that I'm able to work on these new breaking developments all the time. But that's not there yet. But it's more of support systems, I guess, on board, and the connectivity between them. That's sort of already here.
Yeah, but I remember from my time, that was quite some time ago, but the most casualties was caused by human error.
Mm. And then you can say how many potential casualties are prevented by humans, and no one knows. I've seen someone do the math and say, well, if you say 75% to 80% will be human error, and we take that away, we're going to save a lot of money. That's easy thinking behind it, but it's never going to happen. First of all, you're going to introduce new errors made by humans, software programmers, and those doing the algorithms. They will make some mistakes as well. It's not going to be foolproof. It might be safer, but we don't know until we've tried it and seen sort of where the regulation is going to go as well, how strict it's going to be. And I think that on a daily basis, you do need people, at least when you have sort of the regular fuel-driven engine on board. And we hear a lot about the fuel challenges these days, which is... You take that away, maybe we'll get less incidents.
Yeah, because I've also been thinking about the environmental side of all this, all the new equipment that is put on board. I mean, if I'm talking about scrubbers, and I'm talking about LNG, everything that is coming that is sort of new to our business.
Yeah.
that will have an impact on insurance. That is what I always have that in my back of my head. Have you talked about that? Because I've been asking underwriters, when does the equipment become part of the ship? Because that's very important from insurance perspective.
Yeah.
And they all say to me, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, it's on board and in use, so it will be a part of the ship in that sense. We've had, for instance, on battery-driven ferries that we have along the Norwegian coast. We had a discussion on that. I mean, the battery and everything on board is naturally a part of it. But what about the charging station that will be on land? Will that be a part of the vessel and the connection between those? Who's going to pay for that? Is that going to be a different insurance? So there it's already sort of started in a sense here. We have deductions on normal machinery. Will there be a separate deduction on some of these? We're not there quite yet, but we're starting to work on it. On autonomy, and this is sort of one of the fun things that we do, we challenged a group of younger people within the industry. We established 2 years ago, I think, a young plan group that would work on our conditions and possibly challenge us a bit, because we've done this for 100 and some years in the same manner. So let's see if you can think differently and have a look at it, and also to train them. So we use the experienced ones as sort of the mentors, so they get that competence and can build that from a fairly young age within the industry. And they're so much fun to work with. There's so much energy. So I said, well, this autonomy thing, we don't really know. And at some point it will be remote, and we have sort of just a building contract for the first vessel in Norway that will just be in coastal traffic. So we really need to figure this out fairly soon. So we said, well, why don't you have a look at it? Just go through it and think a bit out of the box, because we don't really know here at the moment. Of course, we don't know what the regulation is going to be. We don't know the class requirements yet. And we've seen some drafts now, so it's coming. But we need that in place to know what we're actually insuring on top of that. But that's fun and interesting to see if we can challenge them. So I think they got a first meeting tomorrow.
Oh, that sounds really...
It's happening now.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So you are an expert, more or less, in lobbying and making people understand. So how could the maritime industry become more visible?
I think it's changing a bit, but it's been one of those industries where you don't want to be challenged or asked anything, and in particular from the owner side. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want anyone to talk about it. So they're just sort of people that, some of them are quite rich, and they're just sort of hiding in a sense. And that needs to change. And that needs to change, in particular when something bad happens, that you need to be more transparent and open and really talk about it and be able to do it. I think it's getting better, but it's still a challenge. I've been on the board of the Norwegian Maritime Forum for a number of years, and I don't know how many times a year we have that discussion. Why don't they talk nicer about us? Why don't they understand how important we are? It comes up all the time. Of course, no one in the press is interesting to hear about everything being just rosy red, and find it's a spectacular, bad incidents that will draw their attention. So we work here in Norway very systematically towards schools, going in when they're 14, 15, and trying to explain about the industry and encourage them to enter the industry as well, because it's more than just being a seafarer. You could go into the insurance side, you could become a lawyer, so there are a number of things, because it's a very complete sort of cluster here in Norway. And then, of course, it's very, very systematic work towards the parliament and the politicians, where you do visit the different regions. We work through the regions. On the coastal parts of Norway, it's easier than in Oslo, where there are a lot of other industries, because this is a dominating industry in quite a lot of the cities in Norway, but not here, so it's more of a challenge in Oslo. So everyday work.
I've met journalists, and they say, well, we never write about a building that is not on fire.
Yeah.
So that's the same goes for our industry.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't want to write anything about everything is happy-go-lucky.
No, when there is no story, how would you? So the only sort of on the positive side that we do get now is on the Arabikland, and the fact that Norway probably will be first in the world to really sort of put something like that into with an autonomous vessel into traffic, which is good, and that's interesting to them. But otherwise, it's just the bad episodes they're interested in. But I think still it's necessary to be transparent and
yeah, and I mean the ship owners should know that. I mean, if they don't talk about themselves, someone else will do that, and that will not be true or not be very good.
Yeah. And quite a lot of them do as well. I think what they do on the coastal side, on the western coast in particular in Norway, you will have owners very, very close to the local community, and I think they regularly will invite younger people to come, and you're able to visit perhaps one of the vessels. So there is a bit of a more systematic work, if you like, and easier there. But it's it's going to be...
It wasn't that long ago when I was listening to some people from a stage telling everyone that you should not let your crew be on social media, especially not when there is a claim.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want a claim to be posted on social media. But if you don't talk about on social media how much you love your work, who will know it then?
Yeah. No, that's true, and it's a slow industry. It's quite conservative, so it takes a while. I think we had out an app on the insurance conditions, which were like everyone else in the world was like, what? It's very practical, but it was almost unheard of to go in that direction. There are a lot of tweets and things going on at the moment, I guess. But in a claim situation where you're up against millions of dollars and you're trying to take statements, you don't really want too much of it. So I can understand that for just that situation, it's not something you want to do. That will will be easier when you have a lot more sensors on board, because then you get information from very factual information anyway.
And you can't be sure that there's not someone on the shore taking a picture or wherever the problem is. So it wouldn't just be the crew. It could be that the crew could help in another way to say, look how we managed to...
But I think you'll find claims departments within the insurance companies today that will regularly go out and seek those words. So they will try and get it from YouTube and everything, just to see if there are, ship incidents, passenger fires, that do some certain words and go out and search for it continuously to get that information. So it does happen that they will find it through social media before the owner actually calls in and says we've had a claim, and in particular when there is a cruise vessel.
Yeah, of course, because that's so close to...
You'll have people on board with their cameras.
So how do you see the future of shipping in general then?
Well, it has to be there. I don't think you're going to avoid it. I think it seems like the pattern and the trade routes are gradually changing. It's interesting to see now the trade war ongoing, which of course is going to influence the shipping industry and insurance with that. So that's one of those potential game changers really out there. Another one is on the security side, which has become a very, very big issue for us. We have to do so much due diligence. It's also because of compliance rules sort of coming into play. But you need to make sure that there are no sanctions anywhere. You need to make sure that it's no longer states, but it's sort of groups within states that you need to pay attention to, and it changes all the time. So a lot of money and resources are going into just trying to figure out where it's safe to go with the vessels, and I think it's here to stay. It's just going to shift in areas really where you need to pay attention. So that's one of those important ones, I guess, to look out for. And the environment's going to push a lot of what technology development and what goes on forward, I guess. One interesting thing that we're going to look at now will be 3D printing. How much is that going to change what goes on? You still need to shift the material in a sense, but again, it could change the trade routes.
And the circular economy.
Yeah. So there are sort of some big things happening. What we know is there is a shift now towards developing countries where the growth is. So I mean, sorry, Europe, but, it's not where growth is happening at the moment, and that will influence the shipping industry for sure. Africa next, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. Still, I think the environmental developments, if we could call it that, with the new rules on fuel and so on, I think that has spurred a lot of minds and brains in Scandinavia to come up with new ideas.
Yeah. I think they see it as an opportunity, but you still want a level playing field. And if you don't have control mechanisms that will take the ones not doing the proper job, and then, the good guys will have invested a lot of money, become very expensive, and then maybe lose trade because of it, because some other goes through the loophole. So it's very important to follow up, and that's what's happening on the bunker fuel discussion at the moment, where you sort of get dirty fuel, if you like, and hopefully we'll see some interesting development. I think there is a litigation going on at the moment, or about to start, so that's going to help the ones really doing a good job. What we're concerned about from our side is that you make a decision for the best purposes to help the environment and reduce emissions, but safety still has to come first. And if you don't treat the new fuels properly, you will have blackouts and potential claims or bad incidents happen because of that. So it's very important to sort of take care of the safety side of it along with development, I think.
Who would you be interested in listening to in a shipping podcast?
Oh, my. I think we can go off. Long list of people. I think there is one interesting lady who's been very influential in maritime law issues and insurance for a number of years, professor at the University of Oslo, Lise Wilhelmsen. She would be interesting to sort of get her views from. I talked about security and Richard Nayland in British law firm DFW. He's sort of, he knows everything and is very good at getting that across, but it's such an interesting topic that keeps changing as well. You have Line Dahle, who's now in the management group of Guard, to hear a bit about, why finally taking that step, which could be sort of inspiring to listen to.
She was in my network when I started. So I know her.
Yeah, I know she's in the Vista network. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go to too many meetings, but I know she's there as well. Yeah, but and then finally, sort of, she got into the management group there. So that's interesting just to hear the what and the whys you ended up in that. Because I think that's the next step we need to take to go from sort of the expert positions and then into more of a management position as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you, Helle. It's interesting to listen to how all the challenges within the marine insurance industry mirrors the ones that the maritime industry in general is facing now. It only goes to show that as an insurer, you need to know as much about the technical developments as the ship owners and the ship managers. When I worked as a marine insurance broker, I always said that everything starts with risk management. What are the risks that your business is in? What of those defined risks are you willing to carry yourself? And which ones do you want to share with someone else? And who do you want to trust with your balance sheet? So who do you choose as your insurer? I think that way of thinking still stands. And as you could hear, Helle was talking about a lot of new risks that you must consider now. Be sure that your insurer knows about those new risks. I'm also glad that we had a chance to talk a little bit about female role models, which is close to my heart and so important. As many of you know, I work with Vista International and I am their communications and support officer. That means that I meet so many women in the maritime industry. I speak with them. I listen to them. My network is extensive and global. And I'm happy to report that diversity, gender diversity, is discussed on every level now. There is a lot of work going on, both within Vista and in other places, which is ready to be launched soon. But my soapbox is the visibility of women. We need to be visible, because it's true what they say, out of sight, out of mind. So as many women as possible should be visible. That is my motto right now. And 2019, it seems like the International Maritime Organization, IMO, has reached the same position, as they have declared empowering women in the maritime industry as the theme for 2019. It gives me great pleasure to see the young women in the Association of Women in Offshore posting about one new woman every day on social media. They will be making 365 women visible this year, which is such a great thing, when usually the maritime press is only writing about women in our industry on the 8th of March. I don't know if I should be telling you this, but I missed out on my goal to have 50% female guests in the shipping podcast also in 2018. I ended up with 43.5%. But beginning 2019 with 3 female guests is a good sign, I think. Who else has set such goals within the maritime press? Who else has ever counted how many women they make visible through interviews and articles? When I released the episode, the last one with Cynthia Hudson on cybersecurity, I noticed that the same week, several media released podcasts and/or articles on the same subject. But I was the only one with a female expert. I must say, if there is a will, there is a way. So maybe the colleagues in the maritime press should start counting. Because if you don't count and if you don't set any goals, how do you know when you have reached somewhere beyond where you are right now? I will leave you to think a little bit about that. And I promise you that in the next episode, you will listen to another interesting woman. She will be speaking about leadership, or lack of such, in the maritime industry. So, until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.